Welcome to Revolution Against Evolution. I'm your host, Doug Sharp.
Your co-host Rich Gear here as well, and Doug has picked a really interesting subject, and we're going to see if what we can make out of this weird book he's been reading. And the title of it is "The Dalai Lama in Science." Is that what we're going to call it, Doug? This
Uh,
episode?
That's what we're going to talk about Dalai Lama and his encounter with science. And he has a book that he has written called "The Universe in a Single Atom." Now, to me, that's it sort of sounds profound in the way he puts that, but if you take a real look at it, it doesn't make any sense because the atom is a part of the universe, and then you're claiming that the universe is contained within the atom, and how does that work? It just doesn't quite make any sense scientifically, and so if he's trying to align his philosophy with quantum mechanics and science and everything else. He doesn't start off very well with even with the title of the book. It says it's the convergence of science and spirituality. And so it is an attempt by the holiness, the Dalai Lama, this is what he calls himself. And he is the 14th Dalai Lama, apparently. He succeeded the number 13. Tibet was taken over by China, and I think he's in exile. I don't know where he's in exile for sure. He was brought up in Tibet.
But there's only been 14 Dalai Lamas, so I guess the Dalai Lama only goes back what, a few hundred years. Then is that what it is? I mean,
Yeah.
because I mean Buddhism, which because the Dalai Lama is like the head of the Buddhist thing is I don't really understand how this fully works, to be honest with you,
Hmm.
but he's like the head of the Buddhist sect or religion, but he's in Tibet. Why he's not in China or India or Pakistan or some other place, but for some reason he's out of Tibet, although he's not there now, as you said. But the book you said, the beginning of it kind of talks about, yeah, his encounters with scientists in the world, but also talks about his isolation in Tibet and also his exile when China took over or tried to annex it, or they actually do. They consider Tibet part of China. So
Right.
he fled and got out of there, but we don't know where he is right now. That he's
So apparently
probably
his upbringing was in Tibet, and he really didn't have a lot of introduction in his formative years to science. And so during his exile, I believe he's started to encounter science, and he's trying to reconcile it with his particular beliefs. And
well. The Doug is, when you we were talking earlier. Yeah, he like so many, I would call people who reject the idea of Christianity usually kind of come up with things that sound profound, but they end up becoming kind of nonsensical
mhm.
in their actually when you look at their execution with based on what you can see and observe. I mean, let's face it, Doug, is this any more ridiculous, the idea that out of the atom, everything is in the atom, any more nonsensical than out of nothing comes everything, which is what the Big Bang postulates?
Yeah, it sounds exactly like Buddhism in a number of ways because nothingness is central, and emptiness is central to Buddhism. That
Yeah.
seems to be what they are trying to achieve in nirvana is to empty yourself of all worries and thoughts and everything, and just become one with the universe. And then the one early Buddhist theory of elements proposes that matter is constituted of four elements: earth, air, water, and fire. And then there are derivative substances: form, smell, taste, and tactility, which would be feeling.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so these foundational Buddhist ideas really are in direct opposition of what we know to be true about the elements today. So we have our periodic table of the elements, and then but the early foundational writings of Buddhism go with the earth, air, water, and fire. And then you have to reconcile that with if you have these authorities back in the day of when Buddhism was founded, being wrong about this, how can you be assured that the whole foundation of it isn't wrong?
By the way, Doug, I think that is exactly what the secularist, atheist, evolutionist try to do with the scriptures all the time. They try to disprove the foundational tenets of Christianity and the Old and New Testament, specifically Genesis, but even the idea of who Jesus was and what he did. They try to disprove those things. If they can say there's contradictions or misstatements or false scientists, then they feel like they've got to, then you basically undermine the whole Christian faith. But in point of fact, what's really happened is you're finding out that this particular thing, Hinduism is not any better, okay? And neither is the other ones. They're not any better. Because and even a lot of the secular things is I don't think that earth, air, fire, and water is uncommon to a lot of ancient belief systems, not just Buddhism. I think that might have been part. I don't know if it's part of Hinduism as far as their
It was
thought.
part of alchemy, I think.
Alchemy, exactly. That was a big thing. I think the Greeks believed in that kind of a concept. It was a very common thing, and it's proven to be not really viable in modern days. So what happens is they're trying to hold on to their belief systems, but their foundational tenets have been proven to be false.
Mhm.
So it's a falsifiable belief system, and they're trying to. You know what they remind you a lot of times? People who don't know the scriptures well enough, or even science well enough, and they try to make compromise with creation and evolution like theistic evolutionists. We've talked about a lot of these things over the time, and it's unnecessary. The biblical text is pretty much what it is, and the more we discover, the more scientific it seems to come out. I even like the idea we talk about the very atoms will melt with a fervent heat at some point. The very elements it talks about, and the word is atom, where we get the word atom from. So, but anyway, what you're saying, I went a little bit far afield there, but I think the idea that this is what people have been trying to do with Christianity for centuries, and specifically the last 150, 200 years, trying to disprove the foundational tenets of Christianity. And they haven't been able to do it. But you read this book, and it's like on the surface, it seems contradictory and basically falsified from the get-go. The philosophy, he's trying to correlate an ancient belief system, which doesn't hold up today. With a biblical text, the ancient things hold up. They hold up very well. Anyway, that's my take on that.
Yeah, there's a book that I have on my website that I actually copied and put there. It was called The Bible in the 19th Century.
Oh yeah.
And the premise of that book was that it compared the biblical text to all the different ancient religions of the time, and how they embraced a lot of false ideas and things that are just totally unscientific. And yet, the Bible writers, although they are aware of these philosophies and they knew about them, did not incorporate them into the
No.
biblical text. Because if you're writing down what is truth, getting it from the Word of God, you're going to not contradict scientific principles.
So the ultimate thing, Doug, you got in your notes here, these foundational Buddhist ideas are in direct opposition to what we know to be true about the
Mhm.
elements today. I think that sums it up pretty well. But then there's another part you bring up, and I think this is kind of critical. The difference again between Christianity and so many of the other religions, specifically those based on Hinduism, which is Buddhism, comes out of Hinduism, kind
Mhm.
of a reaction to the pantheon of gods that Hinduism had, trying to go down to get rid of all of them. But the idea is central to Buddhism is the theory of emptiness. You want to talk about that a little bit, Doug?
Okay, let me read out the book here.
Yeah, why
What
don't you do
it
that?
says. Some parallel problems arose in Buddhist philosophy in relation to the disparity between our common sense view of the world and the perspective suggested by Narajunga's philosophy of emptiness. Narajunga invoked the notion of two truths the conventional and the ultimate, relating respectively to the everyday world of experience and to things and events in their ultimate mode of being, that is, on the level of emptiness. On the conventional level, we can speak of a pluralistic world of things and events with distinct identities and causation. This is a realm where we can also expect the laws of cause and effect, the laws of logic, since the principles identity, contradiction, and the law of excluded middle to operate without violation. The world of empirical experience is not an illusion, nor is unreal. It is real in that we experience it. A grain of barley does produce a barley spout, which eventually yield a barley crop. Taking a poison can cause one's death, and similarly, taking a medication can cure an illness. However, from the perspective of the ultimate truth, things and events do not possess discrete, independent realities. The ultimate ontological status is empty, and that nothing possesses any kind of essence or intrinsic being.
Oh yeah.
So, the
Isn't
whole,
that the opposite of what Christianity? What is the first thing? What are the few things? What does God say to Moses in the burning bush? His name was
is I
I
am
am. The
right.
whole idea, it's antithetical to Christianity in every sense of the word. The idea of Christianity, God Himself declares this is real because He is.
That's right.
Because he exists, he says, I am. And here you got to say, the idea, the ultimate goal of these things, like nirvana, which we said, or whatever it is to empty yourself of all, that's the idea of all the reincarnations. You're kind of trying to perfect yourself to the ultimate emptiness. And that to me is antithetical, opposite, if you will, opposing to everything that I would believe, and especially in the, it's not merely the Western world. The reason why the Western world is Western world is because they've adopted the faith of Christianity, and the Christianity has shown to be empirically true. You can look at it. It's, he's not, although to me, he's kind of talking out of both sides of his mouth. What do you think? Well, the essence, things are true, but ultimately nothing is really real. Is what it seems
Right.
like he's really saying.
Yeah. So he tries to show that there are actually two different realities: the one that's in the here and now, and the one that's ultimate. And
But here's the thing, Doug. I don't necessarily think that that's wrong, that there might be two ways of thinking. We in Christianity believe there's a time-space reality, which is
Mhm.
where we live the here and now. We're in 2026 in the United States of America, but there's also an eternal reality, which where's no, it's like time shall be no more. It's like God lives outside of space and time. But the idea is not about emptiness outside of space and time. It's the eternal being. It's the eternal essence
Exactly.
of what is of stability, of truth, of reality is the ultimate is the eternal realm. And the eternal realm is not an emptiness. It's a complete fulfillment, if you will, based on the idea that the author of everything that's in existence, his name is Yahweh. I am. To be, it's the idea, the essence of being. That's the whole idea in Christianity. The idea is that we are, and that reality is reality, but it's broken, and it's not fully reality yet until it's restored by the work of God. So that they're getting, what happens is when you reject or are ignorant of the revelation that God has given through the Hebrew scriptures and the New Testament, you divorce yourself from that. You get all kinds of weird ideas that have some semblance of truth to them, but it's been corrupted, bastardized, if you will, to such an extent you can't even recognize the original source of where they got the idea of two realities. We subscribe to that in that sense. We subscribe to the idea that, and in fact, even the Big Bang, we have our big problem is not that out of nothing, basically out of nothing comes something. Well, actually, I do, because out of something came something. In other words, out of God, everything came out of ex nihilo, created out of nothing, but it wasn't created from nothing. There's always an essence of being in Christianity. And the Western world of thinking is based on those tenets, that principle. This is really diametrically opposed to all of that, Doug. It's really amazing. But they grab onto things they're kind of figuring certain things out, but then they come to a total wrong conclusion. The idea, I mean, the idea of our faith, the idea of Christianity, is that there is an essence that being is real because God is the ultimate being.
And it's interesting to me that one of the characteristics that leads us to Christ is that feeling of emptiness. And there's
Ah,
this hole within us that needs to be filled by Christ. And it's only Christ that fills that hole, but they worship that emptiness. They
well,
bring it, they believe that that's the ultimate place that you need to go is this empty feeling. I can't really understand how anyone would really want to go that way. That just
well, Don, we don't understand it because the Lord has put us in a purpose, a meaning for life. But I guess in some respects, Doug, is why do people kill themselves?
that's right.
They
Yeah.
want to they want to get rid of whatever they consider this reality. They want to basically thinking they're going to end it, and that's going to be the end of it. But it's not.
Mhm.
There's an essence of there's a true essence of being. So, Doug, I like this idea. You got something like Tibet had complex myths of creation that originated in the pre-Buddhist religion of Bon. Is that how you pronounce it? Bon?
Yeah. I want to don't want to skip over that first that paragraph that's before it, where Buddhism rejects essentialism.
Oh, okay. But I thought we were okay. I thought that was about the theory of emptiness. Go
Yeah.
ahead first. Okay.
Yeah, we need to understand that that's what they're rejecting is and essentialism is the belief that things have a set of characteristics which make them what they are. And the task of science and philosophy is their discovery and expression, the doctrine that essence is prior to existence. And in my mind, that's contrary to absolute truth. It's if you reject that. And it's really what makes science work is essentialism, is that you can take and look at things and analyze them and do science on them, and we can discover things about them, the characteristics that God put into them. But
Well, it's the idea how does anything have essence if it doesn't have existence?
right.
It doesn't make any sense at all to me,
Mhm. Now, you were just mentioning that before Buddhism, there was a religion called Bon. And that religion, and I say, if you're going to have a religion that is true, it's got to be consistent all the way back to the beginning. It can't start with somebody here in the middle with Buddha or with
Yeah,
Muhammad. And now you have the truth coming out here in the middle of history. It's got to go all the way back to the beginning
right.
when things. And so and the original Buddhist religion had an account that goes out. It brought out order out of chaos, a light out of darkness, existence out of nothingness. And then when there's a bunch of different questions that Buddha was asked about origins, and he didn't either even bother to explain them. And there's like 14 unanswered questions of Buddha, and the first one is, are the self and the universe eternal? He didn't answer that. Are the
Really?
self and the universe transient? Are the self and the universe both eternal and transient?
Oh,
Are the self
at
and
the
the
same time.
universe neither eternal nor transient? Do the self and the universe have a beginning? Do the self and the universe have no beginning? Do the self and the universe have both beginning and no beginning? Do the self and the universe have neither beginning nor no beginning? Does the Blessed One exist after death? Does the Blessed One not exist after death? Does the Blessed One both exist and not exist after death? Does the Blessed One neither exist nor not exist after death? And is the mind the same as the body? And are the mind and body two separate entities? And
By
when
the way, Doug,
Buddha
just
was asked these questions, and he just brushed him off.
Who was the blessed one? Well, yeah, but Buddha preceded the Dalai Lama. If he
Yeah,
only goes back 14 generations, is it God
talking
or is it
to
the
me
Buddha?
about Buddha himself,
Yeah, I'm wondering.
so
Yeah.
so it's interesting that, and then some early Buddhist writings, Abd was the guy who had the first cosmology. And it involved a flat Earth about which the celestial
Okay.
bodies revolved. And Buddhist thought allows you to question literal truth of any cosmology.
Okay.
Apparently, debate and discussion is part of Buddhist philosophy and teaching. It's just sort of like they can, and it doesn't have to be true or literal or anything like that, as long as you're just discussing ideas.
Boy, Doug, this fits right in with our postmodern world, doesn't
It certainly
it?
does. That's why Buddhism is popular with a lot of intellectuals in in the colleges and things like that because
It's
uh,
nonsense.
yeah,
It's nonsense.
well, if you don't have a God, like the God of the Bible who puts things in order, well, you try to explain the chaos around you, and you find out that the chaos that you're worshiping.
But
Uh,
it's strange, Doug, because even in we as creationists, we understand that the world is broken. Nevertheless, you can see more than a vestige of God's mercy and his orderliness in the
mhm,
world, as in the physical, tangible world. You
mhm,
can see what did he, I mean, tells you the heavens, I mean, the earth declares is his footstool. It declares is its handiwork. It does. There's no doubt about it. The orderly stuff, even in its brokenness, the idea that your body, when it gets cut, can heal. The idea that plants can regenerate after a hard winter. The idea that even though we have carnivory and death and suffering. Nevertheless, new birth and new life can come out of things,
mhm,
even out of things that are dying. Look what happens when when you animals and they manure. Basically is waste, and then it's just used to help fertilize and new plants can come through. What I'm getting at is even in our understanding of the world and its brokenness, we see the handiwork of God despite that. These people say, well, so let me go back to what you just said. How would they explain all of this order if nothing is chaos? There's nothing but chaos. I mean, this makes no that's where the existence makes no sense
mhm.
without a creator. And they ignore the idea of a creator, don't they? I mean, as I said, Buddhism was sort of a reaction, as I understand it, from the pantheon of gods in Hinduism, but it's got the same kind of idea because Hinduism ascribes to nirvana as well. It subscribes to perfect nothingness at some point, as I understand it. All the endless reincarnations to come up to basically perfection. It's a works oriented gospel, or not. It's a works oriented, not a gospel, but a works oriented religion in one sense because you don't get it right this time, you come back as something else. You get to be a little better. If you're worse, then you come back as a toadstool or something. You gotta you, So
The
well, I messed
fungus
that one
among
up.
us, right?
What's that?
The fungus among us.
The fungus among us, absolutely. But none of this stuff makes a lot of sense when you really go down to it. I mean, it's I love like our founding fathers when they were talking about our Constitution and our Declaration. What is it? The first thing they said: we hold these truths to be self-evident that we are endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights. And the point of is these rights are given by a Creator. Buddhism doesn't recognize this.
It has no idea what truth is. That's the
Yeah,
problem.
exactly.
And it's sort of parallels our relativistic mindset that we have
Exactly.
in the postmodern world, where the truth is defined by you. You are your own God, not the God of the universe, and so there's no objective truth except by what it actually relates to you. That's the essence of existentialism is that
Yes,
you if you and the church has actually adopted existentialism in
I
a
know.
way in that they rejected, the first 11 chapters of Genesis, and so they want to believe in a God that loves them, and so they take a leap of faith to believe in God, even though they think it's violates scientific laws, and that's where we as creationists are trying to put that back together to or reorient science to make it behave properly in light of what you actually observe and see in reality.
I agree with that, Doug. It's interesting because the nature of at least science in the last several hundred years really came out in a lot of respects because of through the Protestant Reformation. The idea that there was a God of order, a God who was number one, and a God of order, and you could discover his thoughts after him, and you could do scientific research to reveal the things that he's actually put out there for us to discover. I think that's the one blessed, beautiful thing about science, especially the original science, like Kepler and Newton and all these guys. They're all Christians, and they gave glory to God by the discoveries they could make. The modern, oftentimes, the atheistic scientist, he again is also an oxymoron. He's trying to find truth and relevancy when his whole premise is there is no truth and relevancy. It's all random chaos and accidents, and to how things happen. That's the evolutionary paradigm, which fits right well with this Dalai Lama stuff. I mean, look, how do you get such an oxymoronic statement out of a single atom? Everything comes, the whole universe comes. How does that happen? Doug, that's totally contradictory to in and of itself, you know. Unless you're defining an atom as something different than we define it, but I don't think so.
I think he's getting into quantum mechanics and some of the
Oh yeah,
Fuji stuff that ended up with that. Quantum mechanics was something that got into a lot of strange philosophy. And when Erwin Schrödinger was asked about it,
yeah,
he
that's
said, "I don't like it, and I wish I never had anything to do with it." The
isn't that
Schrödinger,
funny?
the guy who actually made up the thing about the cat being in
Oh,
a box,
Schrodinger's cat, yeah.
and either he is dead or alive, and until you actually open up the box, but you're actually influencing the experiment by opening up the box, and so how can you really know what you're doing is influencing the whole experiment? And so,
Interesting discussion, Doug. Thanks for taking the time to read that book, you know.
well, I'm not going to finish it. It's getting too much in the weeds for me to really think it's worth finishing. But
Okay.
what I'm finding was kind of an interesting little segue into philosophy that I don't know much about. We'll see you next time on Revolution Against Evolution.